Here with us, we have Pittsburgh versus Oregon, a Northwest matchup for Oregon versus the Ohio Valley Pittsburgh and Sabanur Oregon Ego. We have seen some exciting rounds today. It's a beautiful day out here in Palo Alto, California. Guys, what do we expect to see here?
The story of Pittsburgh has been a story of two different halves. In one half, whether it's the first or second, we've seen them be complacent. We've seen them be lackluster on D. Their O has been inconsistent with their execution. They're not taking bad shots. They're just dropping them. On the other hand, we are seeing Alex Thorne and Tyler DiGirolamo take over the game. Tyler going deep, playing great defense on some of the other team's best cutters, and Alex Thorne doing whatever he wants, going deep, coming under, delivering, breaking the mark, being free for resets. It's been their show to run. When they are on, Pitt is on, and when guys are dropping it, we've seen that spiral downward, right? They haven't come out of that spiral very quickly. If they can string together two halves of the good Pitt, wow, that is a true title contender. If they piece together two halves of the bad Pitt, this is going to be, they're going to struggle to get double digits.
Big story also for Pittsburgh is the freshmen they have in their squad. We see Max Thorne, Trent Dillon, Joe Bender, Pat Earls, Christian Pitts, all guys who are starting for this squad. It's been pretty incredible.
Now, when we take a look at Ego on the other side, it's fairly the same story. In talking with them a little bit, they haven't put a complete game yet together this weekend. In the semis, they went down early 5-1 against Wisconsin. Just some mental errors, unforced turnovers to start the game. And it's very similar to what you're saying, Tyler, with Oregon. If they can put together a complete game, I honestly don't know who can beat them. They have the difference between Oregon and Pitt is they're a little bit deeper with stars. I think they are not just stars, but I think athletically. Oregon has two of the most dominant players at this tournament. One of them, one of the most dominant players in the country, Dylan Freechild. He can do everything, and he's one of the only people who can just truly blow by people with his speed in this game. Also for Oregon Ego, Aaron Hahn has been playing great decision maker, great player in the air, and just a monstrosity out there on the field. DiGirolamo and Thorne are going to do a lot for Pittsburgh. Hahn and Freechild a lot for Ego, but I think Ego has a little more depth going down to people like Camden Allison Hall, Topher Davis, and a guy who's really busted out here at the Stanford Invite, Brian Penner on defense.
First pole has gone up, going out of bounds for Pittsburgh. Isaac Saul picking up the disc, centering it in the field. Horizontal stack for Pittsburgh. This game's getting started. They met once in the finals back in 2009 of the Stanford Invite. Oregon winning 12-8 over Pittsburgh. And we have a rematch here several years later. Kunsa with the disc.
Something to keep an eye on. Take a look at the matchups. This is DiGirolamo with the disc, Aaron Hahn guarding him. I think we're going to see that all game long.
DiGirolamo swings it over to Saul. Thorne very close to the disc. Cutter's trying to realign. Overthrown behind the receiver. First turnover of the game. Oregon's disc. Davis trying to strike deep immediately. Fruchter going deep. Goes up. Makes the catch. Oregon on top 1-0.
We've seen that play multiple times where off a turn, Ego has just immediately picks up the disc and looks for that deep shot. Number 21, we'll find out his name shortly, number 21, but he has caught many of those break converting goals because his matchup just sometimes isn't prepared or just isn't perfect, or they match him up specifically so that on a turn he can bust deep. That might be a specific play call from them looking for him on a turn.
Gabe Fruchter with the reception for Oregon, getting them back on top 1-0.
Fruchter making his way into the stat sheet immediately. That was his D and the goal.
Here we see Aaron Hahn and Dylan Freechild both taking a rest. DiGirolamo still on. Alex Thorne back on. That's an early break. seems like late in the tournament they don't want to overplay those players. It's going to be a 15-point game. Could be, you know, it could go more than that, given these two teams and their skill. So we'll see. Might be smart to rest early.
Campbell with the pole. Kunsa picking it up, centering to Saul. Vertical stack look with Thorne off the front. DiGirolamo coming in underneath. Wide open is Watson. DiGirolamo tries to hit him. Defender giving chase. And catches it with ease for the 1-1 tie game.
Miscommunication for Oregon, just poor defensive organization. Thorne was basically unguarded on the first cut, gets it to DiGirolamo, and no one picked up the deep cutter.
Pittsburgh has shown multiple offensive sets in this tournament. We've seen L-stack, we've seen horizontal. First possession they were horizontal, then they were vertical. They'll probably alternate throughout this game like that.
Take a look at the replay here. You can see there's literally no one in the area when he makes this catch. Gonna get a look, our first look here at the Oregon O-line. You know, one thing to be aware of with Oregon is their offense runs through their cutters. They're members of the O-line that rarely touch the disc. Their only role is to reset the disc. I actually think that Pitt needs to take advantage of that. As soon as they get it into one of those, you know, weaker handlers' hands, they absolutely need to clamp down on everyone defensively, but that's going to be a tough task with guys like Freechild, Hahn, and Camden Hall out there.
Rob Cho on Freechild, a highly anticipated matchup. Earls playing off, poaching off the handlers here. Nobody purely guarding Hahn.
It's a great throw.
Putting it out to space to block. Oregon trying to move upfield. Freechild hanging back, finding Hahn up the line, making it look easy. Earls on Hahn. Pat Earls, a freshman. Dubious task guarding the other freshman, Hahn. Freechild up the line, just outside the end zone. Looking for anybody. Flips it over the top to Hahn for the goal. 2-1, Oregon leads.
Those two guys are just comfortable playing together. They got a lot of chemistry. They look at each other. They know exactly what one another want to do, and they do it.
Freechild and Hahn actually combined to win a Westerns championship in high school out of South Eugene High School.
Their experience together shows. Hahn is a freshman. Dylan is a sophomore. That Oregon's got a good future ahead of it with those guys.
Oregon definitely has a good future. The talk for them, though, this year has been, is this year their year after a couple years of having strong teams, trying to put things together. We've talked about earlier about how they haven't had the structure in the past like other teams have, and we saw it in the last game in the semifinals with a couple of hammer decisions.
Yeah, it's interesting. You could call it structure. You could call it the way that you play. I mean, I think Oregon knows exactly how it plays. I just don't think that style lends themselves to victories late in the season, especially at nationals.
Center to Saul, and here comes the L stack with Max Thorne, younger brother of Alex, coming in underneath, finding the other Thorne, and Penner, breakout defender for Oregon this tournament, almost getting the D. Thorne looking back for Saul, not much available. Teammates urging the Pittsburgh offense to cut right now, being forced to work it with the handlers. Over to Thorne, and Thorne taking the shot earlier to the younger brother. Height mismatch here. Thorne goes up and makes the grab, climbs the ladder. 2-2, this game is tied.
Getting airborne.
Every rose has its thorn. We see it right there. Thorne to Thorne, brother connection, goes up real big. I bet he weighs approximately 95 pounds.
Yep.
He's a big boy.
Exploding through the air, light as a feather, getting up tall.
You know, I actually would like to see Oregon throw a more star-studded D-line. Early in a game, it can be so important against a team like Pitt to get them out of their rhythm, and they did that with that first initial line. I don't think it's to to Oregon's advantage to just stick with their O-line, D-line strategy. I think you got to have those key players out there to eliminate specifically Thorne and DiGirolamo.
Speaking of, I'm excited to see the matchups here. We have Han on. We have Dylan. Got Camden. I'm curious to see who Pitt puts on them.
Last point, they had Pat Earls matching up with Hahn, freshman on a freshman. We'd like to see what they do now. And neither team putting out any of their offensive players on defense yet in this game.
Here comes Han.
Child, zoned by Pittsburgh. 3-3-1 with people poaching all around. Oregon working it through, finding Fruchter.
Taking a look at Pitt's first two defensive looks, it seems to me they're acknowledging that they don't have an advantage athletically man-to-man. They've come out zone twice, and I like that look from Pitt. To be honest with you, if you want to challenge ego, it's by challenging their decisions.
Number 21, Fruchter.
Trying to go deep once again, gets up. Beardsley with the D.
A lot of
Foul
contact there.
Called on the play. See here what they observe.
And that's regardless of what the call is, this is a victory for Pitt. They forced a tough decision. You know, I think he might be able to call the foul maybe before it happened, before he went up. It looks like no foul ruled on the play.
Pittsburgh with a chance to get that early break back.
Looked like Gabe Fruchter thought he got pushed in the back there. Tough call to make because it's hard to see that. Yeah. Hard to tell from our angle, at least.
Check back into play. Kaufman, guarded by Allison Hall. Over to drop choke. L-stack by Pittsburgh, trying to find the underneath. Connor, with a bad throw, picked up out of the dirt by Kaufman. Bringing up the line, beautiful throw by Earls. Out to space again. Looking at Kaufman in the center of the field. Now finding Dylan.
Dylan needs to abuse this matchup. He could be catching it every other, but he's a freshman. I don't think he realizes it.
Engaging now up the line. Dylan to another freshman, Earls. Swinging around, good movement here by
comes
Pittsburgh.
Earls.
And there goes Dylan,
and
every other.
Maybe I was wrong, or maybe he heard me. Decides to go every other, and then that was the right play. He knew he had a mismatch. He took care of it. You know, Tyler, we were talking before the game, what are going to be the keys to victory for both teams? And we acknowledged that it was going to be, you know, the way that the teams play within their systems. Both of us acknowledged that Pittsburgh, if they can play within their system, move the ball quickly, they're a very tough team to stop. But unfortunately for Ego, their system involves making high-risk decisions. And in this case, it led to a break.
Break puts Pittsburgh back on top, 3-2. Now we're back on serve after the beginning of this game. After Isaac Saul threw behind his man on the first point. All back to the way things should be, and we get to see the offensive line back out for Oregon.
I got to give credit to Coach Kazmark for Pittsburgh. He threw the zone the first point against Ego, and they gave up a goal. It's really easy to try to get away from zone immediately after you give up a goal, but great job by him sticking with it because he knew that he was getting them to make the decisions that are going to lead to turnovers.
Cable looking for Hahn underneath. Hunting Allison Hall. Free child coming in underneath. Big bid by Kaufman in hot pursuit.
Uh-oh.
Hahn wide open now. Decides to come in instead of taking his man deep. Beardsley getting lucky. Defender for Pittsburgh. Hahn and for Brickwitty. Just outside the end zone. Vertical stack for Oregon. Stoppage on the play.
You know, I play on Rhino with a few of these dudes. We call this area of the field, we call it the no zone, because this is the toughest spot on the field to punch in a goal from. Whenever the disc gets here, we actually try to reverse the disc, change the angle, and go somewhere else, because we know it's a tough angle.
We try to use a hammer to change the angle, and it doesn't work, giving Kaufman the disc, and Earls not liking his chance with Hahn defending deep against Beardsley. Now Beardsley coming back in. Van Ness back to Earls. A little bit of confusion call on the play. Play restarts. Earls with a discombobulated Hostak deep. Colin Connor coming in. Connor's been a great defensive player so far, putting it deep, and nobody's really home.
Looked to me like the mark got his foot up there. And when you see that foot come up as a thrower, you don't want, well, for one thing, you don't want to hit your hand on it. For two, it does change your release point. It changes the structure of your throw and your throwing motion. I think it threw him off just enough to put that throw into exactly the place he didn't want it to go.
High stall situation for Oregon. Hahn, though, rescues the day, getting underneath, and a free throw to Freechild with Beardsley giving chase. Freechild goes up, Beardsley had good position.
I'm not against that put. Not against it.
Taking the shot with Freechild going deep.
And I think that might actually be the first turnover we've actually seen Hahn throw. But I'm with you, Tyler. If you're going to throw to anyone deep, throw it to Freechild.
Drop Cho finding Bender underneath. Bender, one of the 5 starting freshmen for Pittsburgh. Drop Cho. Connor, quick movement. Kaufman, Drop Cho. Pittsburgh really relying on their handlers to move it up the field in a similar fashion Oregon oftentimes.
Drop Cho's immediate movement after his open-sided throws is really fueling a lot of the movement of the disc for Pitt.
Van Ness looking for Earls. Back to Connor. Not too much opportunities downfield for the continuation. Looking, finding Drop Cho.
Hahn looking to make a play on that disc. He was close.
Back to Earls. Drop Cho once again. Cutters for Pittsburgh not able to do much. Some hesitation downfield. Connor now putting in IO pass, intercepted.
I'm going to say the one thing I've noticed with Pitt, whenever they get used to holding the disc till stall 5 or above, they are much less effective on offense.
Rick Whitty. Wilson Moses puts it deep. Block is there. So is Drop Cho. Block
oh, wow.
Foul on the catch.
Kazmarek on the sideline, the coach for Pitt, surprised at the call.
Now, if you're Coach Jannon right now for Oregon, you got to be thinking, okay, we've got a few turnovers this game. Where are those turnovers coming from? All of them deep throws.
Looks like it's an uncontested foul, and Block will get it at the goal line for Oregon.
You know, that said, Mario, you yourself said that's their system, right? Do you get away from your system, or do you keep putting it? Right now, it ended up with a timeout opportunity on their goal line. If that's your system, you can run it. The surprising thing so far is that we haven't seen it be going to Hans to other people. We're going to go to a commercial break real quick. We'll be right back with the Stanford Invite 2012 Finals.
And we're back to the 2012 Stanford Invite Finals. Pittsburgh at Oregon. Oregon disc on the goal line, down 3-2 right now, trying to punch it in after a foul call in the end zone.
Now, at the end of Oregon's last game against Wisconsin, we saw pretty much this exact setup. Everyone on one side of the end zone, and they just ISO'd a cutter out into space. It was Hahn last time. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing. And after Hahn, I'm guessing it'll be Freechild.
Here comes Hahn.
Block looking back for Brickwitty. Looking up the line for Freechild for the goal and the 3-3 tie.
And we've seen it a few times this weekend. Freechild doesn't even set up his cut. He simply uses his speed to absolutely blow by anyone on any of these teams.
The cushion needs to be big to stop him from getting to beating you to that cone.
We're going to see it here. The disc gets dumped back, and you're going to see Freechild just absolutely roast his man up line.
Interesting that we haven't seen Hausman on the field on defense for Pittsburgh. Wonder if there was an injury earlier in the day. He's usually the man who takes the other team's stud receiver. Hausman, very tall. Well, tall enough to take up on any big cutter. Not in the field, instead Beardsley drawing the task of guarding Hahn. Campbell getting set to pull for Oregon.
A pretty good pull. The pulls here could be a difference maker. Pat Earl's pulls for Pitt have led to breaks. I think the same could be said for both teams.
DiGirolamo burning his man, but overthrown by Alex Thorne, just waiting down a little too short.
I think Alex rushed that throw. He threw it all arm. There was no step into it. He didn't set it up with a good step into the throw. Just didn't get enough on it.
Davis on the goal line.
And here's the other thing about Oregon putting D-lines out here like this is there's no one to really run the show on offense. If you've got Hahn out there, if you've got Freechild, even Allison Hall, those guys can just make open space happen for you.
That's a great shot.
Penner, disc in the middle of the field. Big fake, back to Cable.
If they get a big performance this game out of Cable and other guys like that,
Drop along the sideline for Oregon. Pitt's disc.
those guys could be the difference, right? At the top level, these teams have just phenomenal players. Thorne, DiGirolamo, on the other side, Hahn.
Putting it deep for
But
Thorne.
Those secondary players could be what changes this game.
Thorne able to keep it in, get the goal for Pittsburgh to go up 4-3, hold there after what would have been a costly turnover.
And again, sorry, you just got to keep those guys in. The results speak for themselves. First D-point, Oregon throws their studs. They generate a turnover, and they score. Since then, the next point after that, complete miscommunication, easy goal. The other points after that, they generate turnovers. One of them, they got a huck score. The other points, they're generating turnovers, but they can't score. You need those players on the field.
Yeah, but you need to rest them, too. This is a 15-point game. It's going to be decided late.
I mean, I think that this game, I agree with you, Tyler. A 15-point game, but this game can get shorter if you hit Pitt in the face right now with that defense. They'll get flustered, get a little bit of separation, then you rest them.
So you'd play them. I would rest them.
Pull goes up. Oregon's offense back on the field. We'll get a chance to see these explosive playmakers now. Center to Smith. Horizontal stack. Looking for Hahn. Main isolated cutter all day coming in. Looking back. Going deep now, miscommunication, nobody home. And Pittsburgh is going to have a chance to break to go up by 2.
One of the keys right now, when Hahn gets the disc underneath and dumps it or dishes it, I think he's got to go back downfield. That shot, we saw Dylan on the weak side waiting. We saw Hahn in the backfield. One of those guys needs to be providing an option downfield. No one has been able to stop Hahn. Something's going on over here.
Looks like there's a timeout call by Pittsburgh, but some confusion.
Kazmarek's having words with the official. Our officials today include Greg Connolly, Colin McIntyre, Ariel Jackson, and Chris Sherwood. There are observers in the orange shirts. We're going to try to figure out exactly what's going on here, sending our statistician for the weekend, Henrik Meng, out into the field to ask questions.
You're sitting pretty right now if you're if you're Pitt. You're getting Ego to make the decisions you want them, and now you've got a chance for a break. Again, we've got these new rules. You make sure you get Thorne in there, make sure DiGirolamo's in there, and hopefully get a chance for another break.
It's not the first time we've seen Oregon go down early in a game, going down 5-1 against Wisconsin in the semifinal before making it 6-6. And L-Stack starting out for Pittsburgh with Trent Dillon on the back of the stack. Thorne back as well. Looks like he was substituted in from the D-line timeout. Dillon, first cut. Up to Thorne. Putting a backhand out the space for Van Ness. Just needs to reel it in on the break side. Beautiful put. And dishes for the goal to Bobovich. 5-3, Pittsburgh leads.
Fantastic weak side throw from Alex Thorne. Just goes around the defense, lands where none of the defenders can even get close to it. Easy catch for the Loch Ness Monster, Van Ness.
You know, we're going to see this replay. I noticed that Frichter actually got tripped. The Oregon defender actually got tripped before making the play. I don't know if he would have got there, but it certainly may have changed the play.
Pittsburgh taking advantage of those new experimental rules where the timeout allows you to substitute one player.
So here we're going to see the huck by Thorne. You see the Oregon defender actually trips when it's coming. I don't think he would have gotten there, but certainly it would not. The offensive player wouldn't have been so open for the goal. 100% of the credit definitely goes to Thorne.
Substitution allows offensive firepower on the field, but yet we are still seeing Pittsburgh not putting on DiGirolamo in the situation, which could be a good matchup to guard Hahn. They must be comfortable with the way they're getting turns with Beardsley guarding him. Earls with another pull into the end zone. Center to Cable. Allison Hall. Finding block. Putting it deep immediately. Freechild has space, and he's going to run this one down for the goal. 5-4. Pittsburgh still leads.
That's what I'm saying. Dillon needs to get much more involved as a cutter. There is no one in the country that can guard him one-on-one. It needs to be center. Maybe get your play going just like they did to John Block, and then just send Dillon to space. If he puts it, he's probably going to come down with it. After he reels a couple in, they're going to start backing him, and he's going to take the easy under, and then you've got one of your best throwers with the disc in his hand, creating advantages all over the field.
Freechild has really been a monster when it comes to the end zone, but really been reserved, working it down the field, letting other players do the work. Hahn especially, having that connection has been huge.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Freechild on the weekend. I watched him a couple times earlier in the weekend as we take a look at the replay. As you can see, running away from his defender. I did watch Freechild earlier in the weekend, and he's so skilled that he never wants to just reset the disc. He wants to gain yards every time. But you're right, Brian. I've seen him exercise a little bit of maturity with his throwing decisions, and I would like to see him get more involved as a cutter, specifically as the primary cutter for Ego.
Going to be similar to a George Stubbs or, in this case, an Alex Thorne downfield, able to deliver or go deep. One piece of information. Previously, we saw the officials talking to the Pitt coach. The ruling was a TMF for encroachment. So Pitt was given a TMF for their coaches encroaching on the sidelines.
Watson now with the disc at midfield. TMF won't matter, hopefully, in this game. Saul, after a dish from DiGirolamo. Saul now working it with Kunsa back. Finding the break to space to Max Thorne just outside the end zone. Looking for his brother, juking in the lane, forced to go back to Saul. Saul looking for Thorne. Finally gets it into the end zone. 6-4 lead for Pittsburgh.
And that right there specifically is the disadvantage of forcing backhand. That's a relatively easy throw, that low inside-out backhand. much easier technically than an inside-out forehand. Excellent job by the offensive player to read that that was his advantage, waited for a cut, and hit him.
Pittsburgh doing a good job there, marching down the field. They've been seeing a lot of deep shots so far this game. Offenses might start to settle down and work the underneath after proving they can put it deep.
You know, when Pitt plays an opponent that they know, that they expect to be great, it seems as if Pitt brings their level up. But when we saw them play Minnesota, I felt it might have been that they expected to win. They bring in the expectation, hey, we're better, we will just win this. And they have a mental lapse in focus. Their defensive pressure isn't there. They expect to be given the disc rather than have to take it. When they have to take it, when they know they have to fight against a really, really strong Oregon team, they're up to the task. But it's not going to get them out of those tough games, those early, expect less games.
See Tyler Kunsa enter the game, polling for Pittsburgh for the first time all weekend. Defensive line here getting some reps. Younger players pushed up the block. Block going deep once again to Freechild. Stops his cut short. Foul called before the throw. See, there's some confusion on the play.
Looks like there was a foul called downfield before the throw. Disc is going to come back. Lucky for Johnny Block that this one's coming back.
It's pretty hard to overthrow Dylan Freechild, but he was able to in that case.
I mean, you're right. He needs to go with a different throw choice. That doesn't need to be a bendy throw. That needs to be a straight out throw. Keep it in the air.
Freechild coming in underneath. Looking for Hahn, now forced to go back. Smith. Break to block.
Both teams forcing backhand, both teams really getting good backhand inside throws.
Its defense here really clamping down in some ways. Oregon forced to go to their secondary and tertiary looks. Freechild over the top. Wilson Moses.
Freechild needs to come back and get that disc back immediately.
Finding Fruchter for the score, and that's Fruchter's second goal of the game, already with a D as well, and he's had chances at others.
Both teams are looking for energy. They're trying to find something to latch onto to pump them up. That goal is not going to do it. Each team has got to find whatever it is that's going to drive them and bring that energy onto the field.
And unfortunately for Ego, the thing that brings them energy is also the thing that can dig them into a deeper hole. For them to get energy, they love sweet plays, and that usually means hucks. Unfortunately, that's led to all the turnovers that we've seen here in the first half.
Freechild looks relaxed and very not fiery. The Pitt defender on him is not one of, you wouldn't call him one of Pitt's stud defenders. It looks as if they've said, okay, Dylan's going to do damage. Let's try to minimize the impact of the players around him, right? He can't distribute if we put our best defenders on his receivers.
And I absolutely love that defensive strategy, especially against someone like Dylan. No matter who you throw on him, he's going to get whatever he wants. So why use one of your best defenders on him? Instead, put that great defender on someone who's going to disrupt the flow.
Saul putting it deep. Thorne trying to run it down.
Penner.
Thorne lay out. Thorne can't get there. Thorne hurting a little bit, calling an injury. This would be a big loss. Younger brother Max going over to see what's wrong.
Can see he's holding his hip area, maybe his right leg. Excellent challenge by Penner. We're going to see this throw go up. Penner doing a great job poaching from the backside, and they're both going to bid at about the same time. Great play by both of them. Penner comes away with the D.
Alex Thorne does not have a lot of meat on his bones. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a little wind knocked out of him there. He's flying, though. He is fast. You can see it, his stride length is not massive, but his turnover is incredible. You can just tell he's flying.
Dillon substituting in for Thorne. Tapping this in, giving a chance for Oregon to set up their offense.
Real opportunity here for Oregon to make us climb back into this game.
They called him to play. Davis with the disc.
Mario's motioning to me. He doesn't know why that wasn't thrown to him. He felt he was open underneath.
Up to Campbell.
Wow.
Moving up
Oregon's
long.
really eating up yards here. They're getting backed by a lot.
Davis going up the line. Available. Looking back now for Brickwitty.
Now this is an opportunity, again, for Brickwitty to just take control. He's definitely one of the most skilled throwers on this line right now for Oregon. He needs to come and get this disc.
Cable with a very competent back
Spin
end.
move.
Flick
Spin
goes
move gets him open up line. Did anybody see that? Oh, I hope we can get a replay of that. That's fantastic.
Pittsburgh's able to break to make it 6-6 as Cable goes up the line.
Here we go. We're going to take a look at this cut here by Tyler Cable. Watch the reset defender. Spins around him, creates the space. Topher hits him.
It's a rare spin move in college ultimate, but you got to love it.
Street balling.
Here's Alex Thorne back on the field. We got an update from our statistician, Henrik Meng. Checked up on him. It was only the wind knocked out of him, so he's probably still feeling it a little bit, but it's not going to really affect anything long term. He should be just fine.
An obvious change being made here for Oregon as they're throwing out their defensive line. We're seeing Aaron Hahn on the line.
big
we're
dogs.
seeing Free Child, and we're seeing Camden Hall.
Penner, too. Penner with that huge – Penner's been coming up big for them on D. This is when we get to look at the matchups. I would love to see Penner on Thorne still. I would love to see Hahn on DiGirolamo. And that frees up Dillon to take probably somebody who otherwise he wouldn't guard if he didn't if he had to guard one of those top guys. But because they're already guarded by great defenders, he can take someone lesser. I would like to see him on Ben Thorne.
Ball comes down. Kunsa centering to Saul. Vertical stack showing for Pittsburgh.
Here's Penner on Saul.
They were doubling Thorne off of the first cut, realizing what Pittsburgh's play was.
Dillon is up. Dillon passes. It's a poachy man.
Going back to Kunsa. Thorne is wide open now. Free Child giving him some space, finding Thorne. Oregon still running zone, centered to Saul. Up to Kunsa. Going through, Free Child reading the play excellently, getting the turnover. Allison Hall. Back to Free Child. Finding Penner. Easy movement here. Pittsburgh is tired. They're not moving very well in defense. Separation between the cutter and defender. Hahn putting out the space for Allison Hall. Lays out. Two-handed catch. Oregon breaks to go up 7-6, and here comes the break bucket.
Here comes Oregon to celebrate. Camden Hall is a soft-spoken, sort of gentle-hearted guy, but just incredible speed. As a fan, as a teammate, I'm sure you love him getting that goal, right? It just sort of warms your heart a little bit. He's just such a hard worker.
Oregon
Again, the results speak for themselves. You put Free Child on the line. You put Hahn on the line. You put Camden Hall. Those guys are 2 for 2 when they're playing D-line. I think this game could be over if Oregon loads up a couple lines with those same players and gets a lead.
As we watch this Stanford Invite 2012 Open Final, we just got an update on the women's side. University of Washington women's Element has won the tournament. We're waiting to get a score update, but they have won. I believe that was over Sonoma State. So the women's champion for 2012 Stanford Invite for the women's side is University of Washington Element.
Freechild with the pull back, that potent line back out in the field with Hahn and Freechild for the defense. Kaufman bringing it down, centering to Kunsa. Looking for Thorn.
Another poachy defense here. Looks like two
Hammer over the top.
players defending the thrower.
Max Thorn now with the disc on the sideline.
Now into man.
Back to Kunsa. Thorn. Watson on the sideline.
Now the danger of running a transition is you don't have the matchups that you want. Right now, Thorn has a mismatch and he needs to take advantage.
DiGirolamo hanging out in the back. Usually known for his cutting. Now, high stall situation, looking for someone, anybody. Finally finds Kaufman. Kaufman still looking around after Pittsburgh moved up quickly. A little bit of confusion from the offense. We have that Hahn, DiGirolamo matchup. Back to Thorn, big swing. Quick bullet to his brother just before the goal line and a quick dish for the score, and Pittsburgh ties it at 7s.
There's no one besides the stars for Pitt that's hurting ego. Thorn, I mean, that was DiGirolamo, big swing, skilled throw to Thorn, the quick throw to his brother, and then another quick, easy throw for the goal. But truly, the throws that created the goal were from DiGirolamo and the older Thorn.
What's exciting about that is that I've liked Oregon's transition D. It gets them good looks at Ds. It got them that poach block by Dylan. But then they also have matchups that they can like. And if they do go into matchups, I think Oregon's still going to feel comfortable putting some of their players and matching up very, very well against these studs on Pitt that are beating them.
It's defensive line on the field, and just a regular defensive line going into half. Pittsburgh here finally had Julian Hausman in the game. Have not seen him yet in the finals. Up to Hahn. Freechild intercepts it from his own teammate. Fruchter going deep after Colin Connor falls down, finding Allison Hall.
I like that holster. He was too deep.
Finding Hahn underneath Abovich on Hahn. That's a matchup where I like Hahn very much so. Back to Smith, the block. Looking for Freechild, not available now, forced to dump it back. Losing yards.
That was actually a hand block by the Pitt defender. Lucky that the throw got over to Hahn.
Osman disappointed, frustrated that he had one. Allison Hall with the disc off the stoppage.
I love the matchup for Pitt downfield. We've got Dylan guarding Freechild. That's Dylan for Pitt guarding Freechild for Oregon. I still think the advantage goes to Oregon in that situation. Freechild needs to get involved immediately.
Smith looking for Freechild. Dylan in close pursuit. Hahn surveying the field, looking for an opportunity to kill them with one throw. Up to block. Block looking back, not much movement by Oregon. Kill call here, finding Allison Hall.
Call on the play here. They're having a little bit of a discussion. Looks like the disc is going to stay.
Coming in on zero, some stall discussion.
Excellent downfield defense so far by Dylan from Pitt. This is a tough situation. It's one-on-one versus Freechild in the end zone.
Play restarts, Allison Hall. Looking for Freechild. Just outside the end zone, quick backhand high flip for the goal and the 8-7 halftime lead.
This is a game, folks. This is Stanford Invite 2012, the Open final. We're going to go to break right now, but we'll be back for the second half.
Welcome back to the finals of the 2012 Stanford Invite. I'm Brian Jones here with Mario Bryan and Tyler Kinley. Tyler, we've seen an exciting first half thus far.
It's true. These teams are really evenly matched. I was saying before, and I'm going to say it again, I think it's going to come down to not the studs, not the Tyler DiGiralimos and Alex Thorns and the Dylan Freechilds and whatnot. I think it's going to come down to those guys whose names don't get mentioned all the time, but they will be the difference in this game, whether they perform up or down.
I talked to Pitt's coach very quickly right before halftime. We had wondering why Julian Hausman was not in the field. Hausman apparently being saved for the second half. Seems like both teams will be ready to go full bore with their lines going late into this game.
Oregon coming out on offense. The story has been the stars for Oregon. Hahn, Freechild, Penner with the D. And Camden Hall actually has come up with a few goals and had a great break throw going into half to have Oregon up 8-7.
Oregon to receive this pull.
Almost all the other games are done here. Teams starting to pile along the sidelines to give us a good crowd. 8-7 Oregon leads, gets to receive out of half, up one break.
You know, it's quite an interesting matchup we have here, not only for these two teams, but I think when you talk about Freechild and you talk about Thorne, you're talking about two guys that are going to be at the top of the class in that race for the Callahan this year.
It's true. You're also seeing some of the effect, and you know, whoever, if you want to thank USAU or just all the people in their respective towns that are putting together these really strong youth programs, but 5 fantastic starting freshmen for Pitt. A lot of freshmen and sophomores really as the impact players for Oregon. The strength of youth right now is showing through in college, and it's only going to make college ultimate that much better.
Pittsburgh coming out with a zone look immediately in the second half. 4 men around the area of the disc, then 2 and 1 back.
Right now, Oregon's got open throws. They just need to hit it and move the disc. They need to stop looking downfield so much when the ball gets stalled, and just move the disc.
Aaron Hahn is making a case for himself as Oregon's best player, and the reason I say that is because no other team at this tournament have I seen have a player who is just always backed. What that allows Hahn to do is to bail out any thrower with a 10 to 15 yard in cut that's unguarded. Other teams, they don't have that. Everybody gets fronted, and they have to go through the teeth of what sometimes is, in Pitt's case, a very good dump defense.
Gigantic layout by
Here again
Hahn.
is Hahn coming in, gaining yards, being athletic. He is providing Oregon just a constant safety valve. He's like what Chain offered to, or what Zip offered to Chain. He's just so fast, unguardable. He's just always bailing out and gaining yards.
Wilson Moses up to block with the hammer, doesn't hesitate.
Holy cow, that's a
Perfect
throw.
to Allison Hall, speed hammer. Oregon up 9-7 on Pittsburgh, just out of half.
John Block, very, very confident thrower, whether it's hucking, whether it's cross-field hammers. I mean, of course, Camden Hall is an easy target, but that one's all on the vision and the confidence to make that throw.
Not an easy throw.
And he did it. It was catch, look, throw. You know, that's the one. If you pump that one and then you throw it, it's kind of like
Can't think about it.
It's kind of like a three-point shooter in basketball. If you pump it and you're not in rhythm, you're less likely to make the shot.
Interesting with transition defense from Pittsburgh there. Coming down with a zone look, the man defense wasn't working too well. But you come out in transition and you have Kaufman on Hahn. Not necessarily the defender you want. Kaufman did have a great shot at a layout. Hahn getting the best of him. But regardless, that is the disadvantage you're going to see with transitioning from a zone. You're not going to get the individual one-on-one matchups that you would like. Campbell getting set to pull the Pitt's O-line. Watson, Kunsa, Saul, Thorne, DiGirolamo, and Michael Brenner.
The entire Pitt D-line just met on the sidelines to discuss something as a team. That's about 15 odd players all coming together in a strong huddle They just cheered. I imagine we'll see an adjustment, but here we see well, actually, a characteristic drop from Pitt.
Characteristic this tournament, for sure.
Right.
Or unforced errors have been the bane of Pitt this weekend. Saw on the mark, vertical stack, Hahn at the front. DiGirolamo guarding him. Turnover, Pittsburgh gets us back in better field position. DiGirolamo back to Thorne. Those two have had quite the connection this tournament. Thorne putting it deep for him once again. Hahn versus DiGirolamo. And DiGirolamo wins this battle.
You know, in the battle he truly won was he picked up the disc first. I think if Aaron Hahn gets wind that disc is in the air and picks it up at the same time, it might be a closer play.
Reads it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it was a great throw by Thorne to DiGirolamo. Those two, again, being the force for Pittsburgh.
You'll notice after that turnover, disc went to Tyler DiGirolamo. From Thorne to DiGirolamo, back to Thorne, back to DiGirolamo. It's those two guys putting this team on their back.
It seems that those two are the only players that really have great advantages over the other players on Oregon. But I wonder what happens if we get later in the game and Oregon's able to pick out their matchups. We're going to have Freechild maybe guarding Thorne. We're going to have Hahn always matching up on DiGirolamo. I'm guessing that their impact is going to be minimized as soon as we can get those tight matchups for Oregon.
Pittsburgh still sticking with their regular D-line. Flick pull from Kunsa. Kunsa is actually an O-line addition right now to the D-line.
Camden immediately busts deep.
Fruchter underneath. Hahn coming in. Available. Fruchter holds the disc. Puts it back to Smith. Call on the play.
It's been a relatively clean game so far I've seen from both teams, and that's encouraging to see. At the college level, it can get really physical, really chippy, and mostly just honest, great defense being played.
Allison Hall, no defender near him, waits for the disc, has plenty of time, reels it in for the 10-8 Oregon lead. And earlier in that point, Zach Kaufman had a wonderful chance at a D, stumbled coming off of the poach, could have had the layout block.
I think he was in that dirt patch. After that huddle from Pitt's D-line on the sideline, you started to see Pitt bracketing the horizontal stack cutters of Oregon. What that means is one defender is guarding the in cuts from two cutters in the host stack, and the other defender is playing behind and taking the deep cuts. To beat that, you often see both cutters come in and split that single underneath defender. We didn't see it that time, but we did see a miscommunication leading to Camden, Allison Hall going deep and being left completely wide open. In order for that kind of switching to work, you have to communicate well, and if it's not communicated, you get errors like that.
Standard D-line look for Ego. The Stars remain on the sideline, so it's going to be up to Topher Davis and Sam Brickwitty to lead the D-line.
Campbell with the pull. Kunsa back to receive. L-Stack coming out. Isaac Saul downfield, normally back as a handler. Saul busting deep. Coming back in. DiGirolamo getting the disc. Unmarked by Penner. Thorne putting it deep for Watson. Watson burning his man. Watson gets underneath it, makes the catch, 10-9. Oregon leads.
The one thing I haven't seen is a very close mark on Alex Thorne. When you're looking at how to stop a team that hucks as consistently as they do from one player, oftentimes instead of having everybody else mark their men differently or better downfield, you change the way you're marking that single thrower. And oftentimes it means playing tighter. It doesn't mean fouling, but it means that mark being close enough that that windup or that release point is a little bit tougher. It makes break throws easier, right? Because with that tight of a mark, You can really throw past it. You can get your release point around, but it makes the huck tougher. I wouldn't be surprised to see the mark change on Alex Thorne alone.
There's no doubt that an adjustment has to be made. Just playing devil's advocate a little bit there. I wonder if Oregon is concerned about Thorne's ability to break with his high release forehand, which he's so well known for, and saying we have the athletes on defense, let him put it deep, and put it to a relatively unknown cutter, Watson. Defender didn't get there that time, but you're right, Thorne has been killing them with a deep shot.
I mean, you've got to change your defense based on who's on the field. In that case, when your all-stars aren't on the field, you're okay with him breaking the mark as long as he's not throwing deep.
Nelson Hall finds Hahn. Big wind up. Trying to force Freechild upfield. High release. Connor can't get there. Freechild looking back for Hahn. South Eugene connection up to Allison Hall. Finding underneath cutter, gaining yards. Stagnant here, nobody cutting, just waiting for something to happen. Now finally finding Freechild near the end zone.
I'm impressed with Oregon's consistent resets. They look very composed, even looking at a relatively high stall count and getting open every time.
Freechild almost faking to Hahn, finding block in the back of the end zone for the 11-9 lead.
Again, I'm going to give another hockey assist to Aaron Hahn. Crossed his man over, got open up line, causing the defender to poach, which allowed that space near the back cone for Freechild to hit him.
What's most impressive is Freechild didn't miss a beat, saw the poach, and in the same motion threw the disc. No hesitation.
When this Ego team plays with the kind of chemistry that you know that they have, they're very, very hard to stop. Pitt has a very similar ability. Their guys have played together well throughout their careers. It's impressive on both sides, but right now, it's Oregon's athleticism showing through.
Yeah, athleticism and skill. I mean, their ability to break the mark. You got guys like John Block, just no hesitation throwing the hammer. Aaron Hahn had a couple nice reset throws that were very difficult throws in that last point. High level of skill from all these players on Oregon.
Bearing in mind that this is the Stanford invite, it is March. I'm really liking taking the studs off the field for Oregon, giving the rest of the team not only the burden of getting breaks and scoring, but the experience of leading the team on the field a little bit, finding its new leaders.
Kunsa finding Brenner, now Thorne. Up to Watson, back to Thorne. And underneath Thorne, deadly from this part of the field. Going up the line. Davis with a big layout. Big swing to Brenner. Saul, Kunsa wide open, nobody there. Quick dish.
Wow.
For the turnover. Miscommunication.
That is great D from Oregon. Great, great D. Just hustle, never giving up on the play, always staying with it.
You know, it was great vision from Oregon as well. A couple players got beat, they helped, and then some of the weak side defenders came over to create that confusion. Ian Campbell coming out of the stack first, getting looked off by Tyler Cable.
You know, I'm not a fan of that cut. There was never a fake. It was just a cross-field cut. If he had gone deep and come under, I think it'd be an easy gainer.
Rick Whitty looking back now. Forced to put it out to space. Max Thorne in the area, doesn't need to chase it down. Pittsburgh gets it back.
I watch that, and I immediately think about drills I'd like to run with guys on getting open. Because they've got the speed, they just didn't use a good technique to get open.
Thorne back. DiGirolamo gets it underneath. Looking back for Saul. Wide open is Watson. Saul putting it deep. Too far for Watson, though. Mistimed cut off of the throw. Mistimed throw after Watson was open. Too late.
Another unforced error here for Pitt.
Cable L stack for Oregon. Over to Brickwitty. Up the sideline to Davis. Better movement right off the start for Oregon. Penner. Overthrown. Oregon's going to come down with it. Finding Campbell. Campbell surveying the field, looking for an open man. Finds Davis at the line, poached by Pittsburgh. Doesn't work out, and Oregon breaks for the 12-9 lead.
See, that's a tough one to accept if you're Pitt, because that's not Oregon's top line. And when they score, that energizes the entire sideline of guys, right? They see their non-studs go on the field. Their studs get emblazoned, right? Aaron Hahn is psyched to see that kind of thing, that kind of production from the bench. And all those guys on that line that scored, they're going to be fired up and bring that energy to the sideline every other point from now on. It's a real game changer.
This is Next Gen Network's coverage of the 2012 Stanford Invite Finals. We'll be back in a minute. Bringing you back now to the Stanford Invite Finals, Pittsburgh versus Oregon. Oregon with the offsides being forced to repoll. It is 12-9 right now, Oregon over Pittsburgh.
You know, if you're Pitt, you've been here before. You were here in a couple of different games this weekend, specifically against Minnesota. You were down late in the game. You've made some mistakes. They know that they can do it. If you're in the huddle during that timeout, you're saying, guys, we've been here before. We can do this. And hopefully that provides the energy and the mental focus to know and believe that you can come back from this victory.
Upfield to Saul. DiGirolamo coming in underneath. Max Thorne trying to stretch the field, finding Dillon. Back to Saul, vertical stack for Pittsburgh, dump swing. Saul. Thorne. Dillon now.
Interesting lineup here for Pitt. No Alex Thorne on the field, but his younger brother is out there.
And Trent Dillon looks to be from the D-line coming in.
Kunsa, Watson. Watson faking the hammer. Back to Kunsa. Finding wide open cutters. Defense for Oregon trying to catch up. Michael Brenner had a man on the break side. Couldn't get off the throw. Back to Kunsa. Saul. DiGirolamo trying to not continue his cut to the open side. Now he does. Gets the goal. 12-10. Oregon leads.
That's an excellent point from Pitt. It really is. Very patient, taking what the defense is giving them, breaking the mark only when necessary, using the space, an easy goal for Pitt.
After that break, it's tempting to put in your studs, right? They got that rest. You put them in on that D-line, get them in. I like resting them again, though. That puts out another D-line. It forces Pitt to have to go back to the well. They then, they took a chance, rested Alex Thorne, who's been pretty necessary for them. And now we have Dillon, Aaron Hahn, Camden, Allison Hall, all guys very fresh.
Now, this is an opportunity for Ego to show their maturity and show that they are true contenders for a championship. The old Ego in this situation is going to come out and throw a huck on this possession and try to get another exciting play. The mature championship contender Ego needs to take the shot only if it's there, work the disc, and make sure that they get a goal and not give the momentum back to Pitt.
Pull goes up from Colin Connor.
This is a big pull. The pulls have been real difference makers right now, and Pitt's getting down well. I'm curious to see how this goes.
Freechild in his own end zone. Big pull for Pittsburgh, giving the defense a little bit of advantage. Fruchter, travel called. And we're getting close to that point in the game where Pittsburgh is still not playing top offensive players on defensive line. Either they're going for rest and timing it for just one more, I would think, or they are focusing on developing for later in the season. Upfield, finding Allison Hall on the sideline. Allison Hall looking back for the dump very early, finding Freechild up the line. Dillon trying to bid on the backside, putting it deep to Fruchter. Fruchter is there, makes the left-handed grab, and Oregon is up 13-10.
Freechild coming up huge at the right moment. He makes a pinpoint throw that the defender has no chance on, but after his upline cut, excellent play by Oregon. Looking strong, looking like they're going to walk away with this game right now, up a few breaks.
Looking at some stats here, Oregon is 2 for 3 in the red zone and 2 for 2 for Hucks this second half. Hard to stop that.
For all of you Ultimate Junkies out there, if you are loving this Next Gen Network coverage, be sure to check out skydmagazine.com after the game, part of our Sky 2012 College Tour. We have Zach Smith covering the Open Division and Maya Ziv covering the Women's Division as well. Sky 2012 College Tour presented by Spin Ultimate.
Also want to send a shout out to our camera guys here. Sam Adamson and Eli Jannon doing incredible work up in the crow's nest. And also we've got Brian Bedord. These guys are bringing you all the incredible looks that you're getting today. Shake their hand and give them a hug if you know these guys.
Yeah, they're putting in the work.
Campbell with the pole for Oregon. Goes out of bounds, giving Pitt the opportunity to set up their offense. Thorne back on. Isaac Saul again at the back of the stack. Seen him usually at the handler position. Comes in, gets the offense started. Putting it deep for DiGirolamo. Davis is there, boxing each other out. DiGirolamo goes up and gets the grab. 13-11.
That's good D. The defenders far outmatched height-wise and still made a good play on it. Made Tyler DiGirolamo have to go up for the disc strong.
If you're Pittsburgh, you cannot afford to wait another moment. If you were wanting to win this game, you have to go to universe lines and tighten things up right now. Looks like DiGirolamo and Thorne are staying on the field. This is where we know and find out what players have the most confidence from their coach. Oregon here would score by Oregon's offensive line here would put it at 14-11 and nearly put the game away, giving themselves multiple chances. Pittsburgh is almost in a situation where a break is necessary.
Thus far, it's been clear that when the disc is in Freechild's hands, he's very comfortable and Oregon's very comfortable. I like Pitt's poachy zones, but I almost like sort of a box and one type thing. Make it hard to get it into Freechild's hands as hard as possible and make everyone else have to be creative.
Fruchter up to Hahn, and here's the matchup we were waiting for. Hahn, DiGirolamo, John Block. Putting it deep. Fruchter is there, so is Watson. Watson goes up,
Great
gets the D.
Great D.
Great D. Horrible decision by John Block.
I would agree that was not the look you want. There was just very little real estate to room.
That's what I'm saying. That's the difference between sort of the old ego and the new ego. The cut right before that, Aaron Hahn had the exact same look and holstered. He gives it to John Block underneath, and John Block pulls the trigger.
DiGirolamo gets the underneath, looking for Watson, clearing out the lane. Back to Thorne.
Pitt's cutters are working as hard as they can.
Dillon with a disc. Freshman playing gigantic
You know what? They're
points.
almost outworking themselves. The patience that we saw in Pitt's offense just went away. Their downfielders began to cut each other off, all trying to take the reins and take over.
Freechild off of the Dillon turnover. Trent Dillon playing big points, been playing well. Freshman mistake.
Offensive foul called here.
Right now, Allison Hall has the advantage. He gives up the space for Aaron Hahn.
DiGirolamo on Hahn once again. Hahn just outside the end zone. Looking back for a Freechild. Swings it around to Smith. Looking up the field, break attempt. Dillon lays out huge. Allison Hall holsters, finds his man for the end zone. 14-11, Oregon leads. 1 point away from victory at the Stanford Invite.
Great patience. They get an easy goal. That's all you have to do if you're Oregon. I almost want to just take them and say, hey, this game is ours. Let's just not give it away. So Pitt's back is against the wall. They're down 3 points. They're on offense. Is this an insurmountable lead, Tyler? Against this team, I mean, what do they have to do, do you think?
We've got to see something new on defense. I have full confidence in Pitt's O-line. They've been playing well. Their playmakers are doing good things. They're moving the disc well. Right then they looked frantic, and they overcut downfield. They cut each other off. It just looked chaotic, whereas before it has looked much more composed. But in order to get turns against this Oregon squad, they need something different. And I think it needs to start with making it harder to reset to Dillon. Freechild.
Up to Saul, L-Stack, Thorne in isolation. Getting it near the break side, finding DiGirolamo. Looking for an option. Hahn playing well off the mark. Thorne with the disc. Younger Thorne finds DiGirolamo upfield. Hahn still playing incredibly far off. Now sneaking in. DiGirolamo over to Saul. Looking back for Kunsa. DiGirolamo with plenty of space. Back to Saul. Dumb swing. Pittsburgh moving it down the field, marching. Finding Alex Thorne. Makes the grab in front of Michael Brenner, and it's 14-12. Oregon leads.
I'm surprised Aaron Hahn was on that point. He looked tired. The Oregon defense looked a little lackluster. It looked like they're waiting for that point to end for them to just get on O and put it in.
I totally agree with you. Hahn looked tired. He gave up easy cuts, easy resets for Pittsburgh, and that's eventually what led to that easy goal.
14-12, game point, Ego. Going to go quick to a commercial, then come right back to the game. It's a timeout call. This is the Stanford Invite 2012 Men's Open Final.
Welcome back to the 2012 Stanford Invite Finals. We have Oregon versus Pittsburgh. Oregon up 14-12. Offense on the field. Game point. Things are tight for Pittsburgh.
This would bring the Open and Women's championship trophy from this tournament to the Northwest region. The University of Washington women's team Element bested Sonoma State for the women's finals. UW Element is the 2012 women's champion. This would be the first. This would be the first in a while for Oregon to win the Stanford Invite?
They won back in 2009.
Who did they beat?
Pittsburgh.
Over Pittsburgh. 2010.
2010 in.
And it's interesting to compare those two Oregon teams. Both of them star-studded lineups. You're talking about that old Ego team. Eli Shannon, Joe Condon, Eli Friedman, Kevin Minderhout, all those guys. An additionally talented team. We'll see if this team can have a different result.
Many of whom bring you the filming today.
Smith finding Freechild on that reset. For Dillon.
Oh, my
goodness.
Gets
the hand block. Call on the play.
As we were talking off camera, I've been talking about Dillon's cheeky high-release backhand, and we were talking to Eli Shannon saying, at some point someone's going to get a hand on that, and Eli made a good point. He doesn't release it until it's past your shoulder, until it's past your mark. What that means is if you do touch it, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be still in your hand. However, Greg Connolly rules no foul. That surprises me. I did think that might have still been in his hand.
Came out pretty good. Heard no hand smack over here, and big ruling giving Pitt new life.
That eliminates a clean sheet so far this game for Freechild.
Alex
That's
Thorne.
the price of too much of a relaxed throw.
Thorne, Dillon is wide open on the break side. Can't spot him. Puts out in front for Kaufman just before the end zone. Hammer, Hausman, big mistake. Hahn right in the middle, rips it down.
Thorne has got to demand the disc in that situation.
Wilson Moses. Looking, surveying, nobody. Statue.
Alex Thorne doing a good job to shut down the dump.
Smith over to Block. Block going for the win. Laser backhand too far. Gibson Block displaying that backhand. Huck early in the game was working. Not so much anymore.
Worked. I'm not gonna ever say that that's working. That it worked once or twice. It created some excitement. Maybe the right decision in this case. He did have free child with some space, but I don't know. You got to, when your game's not on, you got to holster that.
I agree. I don't like that decision.
Dylan. Hausman streaking deep. Dylan holstering it, finding Watson underneath.
This is Pitt's game. This is Pitt's game right here. Big pump fake, open up an easy underneath, take the easy shots. There's another one.
Watson, now Oregon finally gets everybody reset. Vertical stack looking for Thorne. Smith tight on the mark. Looking back for Hausman. Back to Thorne. Call on the play.
What's happening with Ness? He is ambling off the field like a line dancer.
Nick Kazmarek saying that they had to keep Hausman healthy in the first half. That was a big deal for them.
That's Hausman?
Hausman, yes.
Wonder what happened there.
I don't know what kind of line dancing you're doing, Tyler.
Looks like that.
The younger Thor comes on.
Now, if I'm Pitt and I'm Kazmarek, the coach, I'm looking at matchups all over the field. Thorne has an obvious mismatch athletically. I think he could go every other for a goal.
Oregon's O-line just subs in a defender, a new defender to be put on Tyler DiGirolamo. Inside break to Trent Dillon.
Dillon getting near the goal line. Thorne not available. Forced to go back to Kaufman. Open opportunity for Watson. Gets the goal, and we're within one, 14-13. Puts a little bit of pressure on Oregon.
You know, there's a couple guys on this Ego squad who definitely have experience specifically in this situation. I'm thinking back to 2010 Rhino Northwest Regional Finals. We had a lead. Rhino had a lead 13-10 against Furious George. We had the disc, and we gave up that win. We simply just left the door open for Furious George. There's a couple guys, Topher Davis and I think Dylan that were on our team then. Those guys have been here, and they really need to step it up. Tell the team, hey, I've been there. This is ours. We just need to execute.
On the other side, Pitt has had issues finding its defensive intensity. The coach, Nick Kazmarek, saying that their complacency and their aggression on D has been a serious issue. This is the perfect test for that. Pitt pulls this out, that's a great lesson. If Pitt doesn't, it might even be better for them going into the rest of the season because they have that new frustration going into every track workout, every lifting session, every practice. Regardless, this final is going to be a great experience for both teams.
Big lines out for both teams. Waning moments here. It's been hot all day for these teams that are playing in colder conditions. Wonder if the fatigue could start to play a role in these matchups.
You know, it certainly has, specifically for Hahn in these last couple points. Hasn't been quite as dominant as he was earlier.
Ball goes up. This one trailing out of bounds. Killer for Pittsburgh. Defense could have started it with a disc with the end zone. Now giving Oregon just that shorter field and ability to set up.
You know, some teams don't start well from a stagnant out-of-bounds pull. I think Oregon does. A lot of times because you have guys like Aaron Hahn that command a good matchup and get backed.
Hahn having to go to the ground to make the catch. Finding block. Flips and turns around. Gets it for the goal, and this may be the year of the Ego. Ego wins the 2012 Stanford Invite.
That's block, throwing that goal. Now, after this game, a leader, a captain, a coach, someone on the team has to talk to Block about his decisions. They can't have, if they take away his turnovers from this game, I think we're looking at a 15-11 win, potentially. Those kind of turnovers can't happen, and it's almost more worrisome when he throws the game winner. He leaves this game feeling incredibly confident. If he can come out of this game throwing that game winner and still have some level of frustration, I think that's positive. I think he needs to remember those turnovers and get better from them and not feel content with that one game-winning throw.
You know, I totally agree. Every great coach is able to come away from every experience, whether it's a win or a loss, with the things that you need to learn. And I think specifically you can look at this game and point that out. The other thing that I would look at for Oregon that I would take away from this is what got you here, okay? What got them there is shutting down handlers and then having, throughout the course of the tournament, their handler defense picked up and was able to force other teams into making deep throws and forcing extra turnovers.
Story of the season so far, we've seen some strong potential from Oregon to take it all. We've seen strong potential from Pitt. Who does this help more? I mean, Oregon has been recently defined by a strong regular season and a subpar performance at nationals. Is this a worrisome win for them? Does this almost just sort of fall into the pattern?
You know, tough to say. It's hard to ever characterize a win
Poorly.
I
hear you, but
I agree with you that this team still has a ways to go before they're going to reach a national champion.
Here we've got Dylan Freechild with us. Dylan, it's a great win, huge.
Yeah.
You got to be psyched, right? What do you say after this, right? You cannot ever get content. How do you take the satisfaction and say it's not enough?
I mean, our whole philosophy is we're building till Monday of nationals. And we got a high seed, even though we didn't have a lot of results prior to this. And we wanted Pitt in the finals. We want to be able to take that #1 spot. And we're just going to keep working. We had 2 hard games to start. Had to make 2 comebacks. And I think it taught us that, we needed to come out ready in the first half. And we took half. First time we took half on Sunday. And we kept going.
It's clear that you guys have a physically dominant presence. Going forward, looking at your results from this tournament, what do you leave saying, here's the 3-4 things I know we need to work on?
Well, I think on the defensive side, we need to work on, honestly, some 50-50 balls. You think that might not be the case, but we have a hard time bodying up and coming down with some stuff besides Aaron Hahn. And we get beat a lot on the inside. I think our marks, we get a little tired on the marks. We get content with just letting them swing the disc. And I don't think that's good enough if we are trying to make it to Sunday, Monday Nationals.
Speaking of Aaron, I know you guys played together at South Eugene. Yeah, you guys played together forever. How does that help you out there? You guys seem to be connecting on a lot of things that they almost look to us or to a casual onlooker. They might look like risky throws. How has that helped? That relationship helped?
Oh boy, I don't really know if I can explain that. It's just as much of an amazement to us as it is to the spectators. It's fun to be able to turn and know that I got, one of my best friends who, honestly, has been there since middle school actually, and he knows exactly what I want, and I know what he's looking for, and it's a pretty sweet deal we got going on.
Yeah, you guys look great. My name is Mario O'Brien here with Dylan Freechild and Tyler Kinley. It's been a pleasure to be with you guys here. Oregon Ego Champions 2012.
Stanford invite. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.